long as you just ride it one time first, down the
Chile.
I can talk a little better, talk through how you're riding it. There's different ways of riding this 40 section. But if you do it a different way.
I tried the left and never make it.
Position yourself on the seat so you're maintaining grip on the rear tire. Let me talk through. Well, here. Let me have you ride it the same way again. There's different ways to ride this so I can talk about it. Yeah. No, we'll do it fast again, but not yet. Let me explain that one. Okay, everyone can hear me?
Yeah, sir.
Okay, so this is a climb where it's so short, I would actually, there's different ways to do it. First I'm going to show you how the easiest way to get up a climb like this. And then I'm going to have him try to ride it slower to show you how to position yourself properly on a climb like this if it were to go longer. So understand how to position yourself on a normal climb. Because right now, the easiest way to get up a climb like this is actually to come up with pretty much speed, or as much speed as you can comfortably. And then make sure you're in the proper gear and take the line and actually look at the line. So anytime you look at a section like this, if I were looking in a race or come to a new course, I look at the line options first and then I try it multiple times. Peter obviously knows the best line. So Peter, why don't you ride through it real fast and show us the line first, and I'll talk to you about why it's... So watch his exit. The exit's the most important part. So because that's going to be the hardest section. Because on the right side there's rocks in the middle and there's rocks on the right. So what I look at is I say, all right, well, I might try it the first time and actually hit those sections and be like, well, what happened? And I'll probably realize that it's those rocks. And if I had someone like Peter, I just follow his line and say, all right, that's the best line. But when I don't have something like that, I look at it and I approach it with as much speed as possible, and I check my gearing. That's the next best thing, next most important part. So you find the line, and then you find which gearing is going to work, so when you get to the top, you can stand up and power over it. And then the third part is proper positioning. But honestly, in a climb like this, if you come up with enough speed, the position should just be mainly off the saddle, and you should be powering right through it on a shorter climb like this, because that's mainly what it is. If you're coming into it slower, if you're not quite as advanced, that's what we're going to have them do now. Peter, come back down. I want you to try to approach it slowly in a lower gear and position your body a little farther and back on the saddle. So the main thing here is that we're worried about is I want you to do it as slow as you feel comfortable. So he's got to position his butt on the saddle so he's got enough traction in the rear, but also so his front wheel doesn't pop up. So you see he did actually really well. So he actually, the position, normally you'll move your butt on the saddle just a tad bit forward, and it'll keep your traction on the rear wheel. And then also what you're doing is you're leaning forward on the bike to keep your front tire on the ground. Because if you do either, it takes a little practice. That's the best way to learn this. And then the third part again is the gearing. You saw how his gearing was he actually almost picked the perfect gear to get up it. Because it wasn't so fast that he wasn't creeping up it really slow, but it was big enough to where he can make it all the way up and power through it. So that's normally what you do in a section like this, is you want to keep on practicing it and try different gears. So if I have someone new that I'm training, I'll have them approach it, and I'll watch how they get up it, and then I'll say, all right, drop the gears down this much or increase the gears this much, and let's try it again. And then after we pick out the line. So pick out the line first, then work on gearing and position at the same time. So anyone have any questions? Sorry, I wish I could ride it right now. Anyone have questions on the climbing part?
So you would say it'll be a lot easier to get up over a 29 than a 26?
It's going to give you better traction. So yes, and then this goes again to tubeless. So if you go in, I guarantee if you put 40 pounds of PSI in your tire on a 26er, it's going to slip a lot more than if you put 20 pounds of PSI in a 29er with tubeless. Because the tire is going to, when you step on it, especially when you stand up, the tire is going to conform to the ground. It's going to give you a lot more traction. That's the first thing I ever noticed when I hopped on a 29er, was the increased traction when I stood up and went up a hill like this. That's one of the best benefits, is that, and then cornering when you get better at the cornering. Okay, any more questions about the climbing? I'll have them go downhill after this. All right, Peter, come back. I want you to go back a little bit and come down. Hey, why don't you guys scoot back a little bit just in case? I don't want anyone to, he's going to be coming down pretty fast. I'd like to go out to the back on it. Just as fast as you feel comfortable. I don't want you doing any crazy stuff. Alright, so watch his position on the bike. He's probably be back a little bit more in the saddle, and he's going to be letting by back. He's going to be pushed out a little bit, and he's going to be watching. His eyes will be where he wants to go, not at the trail. And you see how he's off the saddle.
Yeah.
He's off the saddle. That's one of the most important parts. He's going to be back in the saddle a little bit more, and he's going to be putting his eyes where he wants to go. That's one of the most important parts of the trail. Anytime you're trying to do anything, put your eyes where you want to go, not where you don't want to go. So when I ran into Sharon this morning, I was watching her. Okay? So why don't you do it again for me? Take it a little bit slower this time so we can see your position a little better. Oh, you went around the roof. So I'm going to have him try to get a little slower this time and watch his position on the saddle and watch where his eyes are. He's going to be looking up this way rather than straight down the... He's looking where he wants to go. He's back on the saddle a little bit and he's extended a little bit. See, just like that. So that's how you take it slower. See how far back he's on the saddle? He's actually got his butt almost behind the saddle. And what that does is it gets your weight behind. Just like when you're climbing up, you're moving up on the saddle a little bit. When you're going downhill, you're moving behind the saddle a little bit. So yeah, exactly.
CG.
And with a 29er, is actually going to give you a little more confidence on something like that because the wheel's bigger. So you don't actually have to get back quite as much, and it feels like you're in the saddle a little bit more. So once again, that's why I like a 29er a little bit more than a 26er.
Yeah, but agile going through this trail here. You find it's more agile than 26.
At first they had some issues with 29ers, but since then they've really changed the geometry to make it a lot more agile feeling. So, and as long as you get a lighter wheel, it's going to feel super fast.
You have a longer wheelbase.
Yeah, and they've shortened the wheelbase a lot more to make it, and especially they've shortened as much as they can. That's what that's a big challenge, is making it as tight as possible to make it as quick as possible and quick as handling as possible. Yeah, it's going to make it quicker. Yeah, you don't want too long a wheelbase. It's going to make it feel really sluggish and not react as fast. Yeah. Yeah, so they put it as close as possible while keeping that, while keeping the tire so you can fit a good tire width in there. Anyone have any questions about downhill? Okay, the only other thing I have is maybe hopping a log. I don't know if we have any log or anything here to hop.
Plenty log.
Bamboo? Oh, here.
I'd actually like some cornering, maybe.
Yeah, we can look at. Let me have them hop over something. Then I'll do cornering demonstration real fast.
Let's put somebody to lie down in the trail.
Let's make it
There you go.
Competition of a log, width and height.
See, I just want you to hop it first, like bunny hop it first. So so when you're practicing going over sections like this, you're doing what's called weighting and unweighting. What I mean by that is you're unweighting the bike by, you're not really pulling back, you're actually kind of leaning back on the bike. And then when you get over it, you're actually leaning forward, and that'll pick up your rear tire. So you're picking up it's like a wheelie. You're wheeling over it. Once you get your front tire on top, and you're pushing down the other side. Just do it slow this time, actually. Not a bunny hop, just hop over it. So you see how he comes back? Well, he makes it easy. Peter's very good technically. So you can actually see he really overdid it and actually made it very easy to demonstrate. So you saw him do it again, Peter? So you see he pulls way back, and he's actually see how he's using his weight? His butt's actually behind the saddle when he's actually pulling up. And then when he gets over it, he's pushing his weight forward and leaning forward. That's a very overemphasized example. You don't have to do quite as much, but it really shows how much it helps to do that. And by doing that, it will allow you to get over stuff like this, but also, when I'm racing and when Peter's racing, we're looking to get through the trail as efficiently as possible. So we're trying not to touch any of the stuff. So anytime you hit a little root or anything, if it's something that we need to hop over, like there's one dip in the course, you come up and down this and back up. We're hopping over the other side to get over that root, and we're trying not to touch it. And yeah, even when you're climbing, you learn actually how to wheelie over that stuff. So actually in races, I'll have stuff where I have to hop up this high and on a steep climb like that. You go up something like that, and you actually have to hop up it if you want to make it. So you'll be going up it slow, and you'll wheelie up it, and then you'll lean way forward and pull up the rear wheel after. It's very challenging. So that's part of racing.
Yeah.
So all right, so let's do any questions about weighting and weighting. And actually, and that goes into too. Anytime you come into dips and stuff, you're doing like a BMX. I call it BMX kind of like. Anytime you're going up and down like this, we're doing the same thing. When you go down the hill, you're pushing down. You come back up, you're pushing back up. Again, that's why I'm off the saddle a lot. I'm pushing all. If you watch me go through the trails tomorrow, and Peter too, he's really good at it. You'll see us off the saddle all the time, pushing up and down. You won't see us pedaling that much. If you ever ride behind us, you might notice we're not pedaling very much. It's because we're using our body and we're using our upper body, saving our legs for when we have to use them. So learn how to pump it. Yeah, going to a pump track is a perfect example of exactly what, you watch BMXers. They don't pedal very much, but they're flying because they're just pumping, pumping, pumping. Same thing here on a course like this. Lots of pumping, saving your legs, flying through the trails.
There's some little bits on this section. Details here that you go up, big route, then down, and a tight turn right afterwards. How do you manage those?
You use a bunch of different body movements all over the place. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's like you're using weighting on weighting, and you're getting off your saddle and adjusting the cornering and looking. Once again, I'm looking ahead in the trail and scanning and trying to scan as far ahead as possible so I know what gearing I need to be in, know what body position I need to be in, know what speed I need to be at.
No brakes.
Braking as little as possible. Okay, so last thing, cornering. Let's see if I can set up a quick corner. You guys focus on. On a course like this, the faster you can corner, you're a lot faster. That's all I can say. So learn how to practice cornering. Best way to do that, and this is the best way to do anything. Try to pick, instead of picking a large section of trail, try to pick a section of trail that takes maybe 5 minutes to get through if you can. Something short with a lot of corners or a lot of dips if you're working on weighting and weighting. Do it over and over and work on the same thing over and over. Your body only can process about one thing at a time, and just keep on working the same thing until you nail it down. Then maybe pick up the speed a little bit more until you nail it down more, and then maybe work on the next spot. So 3 things I want you to work on. First is, once again, look into the trail where you want to go. So if Peter does this right, you'll actually see him looking, when he's coming around this corner, it's going to be pretty high speed, so you actually see him looking about 15 to 20 feet ahead of him rather than straight down. If you look straight down, it's going to mess up your body position. You're not going to be positioned properly. The next thing is the faster you go, the more you do this. So it's not on all corners, but on a corner like this, you'll see him laying down his bike a little bit. So I'm actually pushing down on this bar a little bit, or just moving it slightly, and then I'm weighting mine out. I can't get my foot weighted out. On a fast corner, I'm actually weighting this outside foot, so it's actually almost straight, and this foot's at about 12 to 2 o'clock, right around there. And doing this is going to allow you to use the side tread more, because obviously if your bike's up here, then you're only using the center tread, but as you get farther down, you're using the side tread, which is what it's meant for, and a lot of people don't get down quite as far as they need to. So by doing this, you're going to take the corners faster, you're going to be having more fun on the trails, you're going to be more efficient on the trails. That way when you come up to like a hill, a corner with a hill after, you can go faster to the corner and go right up the hill. It depends on how fast you're going. The faster you go through a corner like this, yes, typically. If it's a loose corner with a lot of rocks, then it's a whole different situation. But this is just an example of what you do if you're going through a really fast corner, which you have a lot of over here. You're trying to position it so your outside foot's almost straight, inside foot's about 12 to 2 o'clock. You're pushing down the bars, and you're actually just kind of bending over your hips, and your actual upper body is almost perpendicular to the ground. And then you're looking in the trail. All right, Peter, you're done. See how good he does. Yeah, and the other part is obviously picking the right line. You always want it when you're taking a corner. There's definitely, most of the time I like taking the outside to the apex, meaning if you have a corner here, I try to swing it out wide and cut in, but there are definitely exceptions to that. Anyone want to see me do it again? I think you're good, Peter.
How important is that, and how do you determine the proper tire pressure?
I'm normally running, so I normally have a range between like 20 to 25 max for me. I went over a little bit earlier, maybe you went there. So most people run way too high pressure for mountain biking.
And the rate your body weight wouldn't also determine what.
It does somewhat. Stan's No Tubes actually has a good, if you go to their website, which is notubes.com, they actually have a calculation. I think it's, I want to say your weight divided by 2.7 or something, but I don't remember right offhand. That's a good way to start, but that's tubeless. If you're running a tube, you got to run a little higher to avoid pinch splats. But it shouldn't be too much higher. If you're running like 30 to 40, especially if you only weigh like 150 pounds, you're running too much. You're just hurting yourself more than you're helping a lot of times. So try running a little lower.
But it is important.
Tire pressure, absolutely. Give you more traction. You can corner faster, and you can go, when you hit these rocks, you're going through them rather than over them. So yeah, this is actually, he's got pretty good tire pressure in here. Normally I test it by my fingers.
It's even more important on a hardtail, I find.
On a hardtail, even more important, because it actually gives you like suspension. Yeah. Like you'll see on the back of mine, you can actually push, if you push with your fingers, you can almost push it all the way down the rim.
I can feel my own bottom, sometimes.
Yeah,
it's fine. It's still.
As long as the rims are holding up, you're good. You got to be a little careful. It can damage your equipment a little bit, so you just want to be, and you got to be careful about burping too. Some rims, like Stan's rims, have a very wide profile. And that's purposely meant so that the tire doesn't roll over at low pressures. So you can run super low pressures, and the tire doesn't roll off, and it allows you to get through stuff a lot faster and a lot more comfortably. So, you know, my bike's over there. If you want to see how much tire pressure I'm running, you can just push. Just grab it like that and push it in. You can feel how low it is. It's and actually I didn't test it today.